welcome back to my channel, and welcome to another episode of the Dumb Bitch Book Club. I'm Chandler.
And I'm Hayden.
And today we're going to be talking about my most read book of all time, City of Bones by Cassandra Clare.
Yeah, see, this really surprised me because I always thought that it was Twilight.
I feel like it's a fairly safe assumption for me and for, I guess, other women of my age demographic. I really did love Twilight when I first read it. I want to say I read Twilight for the first time in like 7th grade, carried on with the series, absolutely adored it, but I couldn't just stop there. I had to find other fictional men to develop crushes on. I say men, usually boys, usually not like 150-year-old vampires. And I found myself becoming so attached to Jace. Something about his personality, which we'll get into in depth later on, I'm sure, because that's one of my biggest notes in my notes section is I fucking love Jace Wayland. I found Jace. I found this world that was so rich and inventive and imaginative, especially in the YA landscape at this time. I fell for it. Hook, line, and sinker, and I read this book so many times. I wish I had kept my first copy I had of it. It was just a shitty little paperback, and it was the green one, which I'll insert a picture of right here, you know, the original cover. And honestly, shout out to the original covers. I actually really enjoyed them for this series. I think they're superior to like any, you know, new coverings of this book, but I just have a fondness for City of Bones that will probably never leave despite the problematic elements. So we'll talk through those as well as this video carries on, I'm sure, but
that's another thing. I mean, and I know that we'll get into it, but
yeah.
I think you kind of warned me at some point before I got there in the book that there was some problematic stuff. Mm-hmm. And honestly, I was underwhelmed when I got there. I didn't really feel like it was problematic personally. When it hit, I was like, oh, that's it? Which may be, you know, underselling it a bit, but those were just my thoughts.
What were your overall thoughts, I guess, about this book? That's kind of how we start all of these. Like, what are your overall thoughts? What's your star rating for this book?
Star rating...
Are you going to start with the star rating before the overall thoughts? You do it however you want. I'm giving you free reign here.
Well, I actually hadn't thought about a star rating until now. Should my star rating be based on, like, my actual opinion of, like, every book that I've read? Or is it a DBBC star rating?
This is a star rating on however you want it to be. I'm going to say let's go with star rating is your overall rating as a book of all the books you've read, and then you can qualify that with some statements about how you feel about this book compared to the other ones we've read. How about that?
I'd say this is like a 2.6 for me or something.
Okay. But it feels weird hearing that from you because you've given other books we've read like 3 or 4 stars.
Yeah, and that's why I was asking, like, those ones definitely, I would say every book that we've read for DBBC in the past has felt like its own category and it should be judged as such,
accordingly?
You know?
Okay, sure.
Yeah, because
okay,
if they were...
Rate it that way then.
Oh, okay. If it's that way, then we're talking about like a 4.1 in terms of like DBBC books.
What is the point ones here? What is this scale you're grading on?
I don't know.
I'm a whole star bitch.
Just a whole star bitch. Okay, then it would be 4 if it's a DBBC rating and a 2 if it's like
just a
general rating. Yeah.
Fair enough. Overall thoughts about this book, because you expressed some stuff to me that I think belongs in this segment right here.
Overall thoughts, I thought that it was good. I mean, obviously with my rating,
yeah.
It's definitely better than most of the DBBC books that we've read. It still has the thing that I am not a super huge fan of, and I guess part of it is because I can't relate to it because I was never there, right? But like the perspective of a teenage girl, like an angsty teenage girl, is not annoying. And I don't know if that's wrong to say.
It's not wrong to say. I think it's interesting you bring that up because when I was reading it, I read it after Hayden. That's kind of how most of these go because I'm the one that holds us up with the procrastination lately. Upon reading it, I actually didn't find Clary to be that irritating, and I didn't find her decisions or her choices to be that strange, I guess you could say.
I will agree with that, and that's why it's rated so highly. It has the same like voice to the thoughts that you read, but she doesn't make nearly as many terrible decisions that would make her the dumb bitch that we need for
this particular
book
show.
Club.
Yeah,
exactly. She was quite smart on the scale of 1 to dumb bitch.
Fair enough. Obviously for me, this is a 5-star read. I love this book, and I am excited to be revisiting it for this here book club because I looked at my Goodreads. I'd actually reread this in 2019, which I have no recollection of, and apparently I labeled it as having listened to the audiobook, so I have listened to this audiobook before as well, which I literally, again, have no recollection of, which is not that surprising since I read so much. But it's just a very nostalgic read for me. It is a very comforting read. I like the world, and I love the humorous elements of this book. It is, in my opinion, unlike any YA fantasy that I have read, and I think it is because of that humorous element. I think a lot of fantasies try too hard to be melodramatic, to be angsty, to have tension, and I think there is an unintentional angst and tension in this series that I really connected with, which doesn't come through necessarily in this first book. To me, it's the beginning of the second one that really comes through, but we're gonna get there because we're reading the whole fucking series. Spoiler. So.
And that's another note that I will add. After reading it, I was still a little bit surprised that this was your most read, and I guess that was something that I didn't know about you. I kind of always assumed that, around the age where you would have been reading this or Twilight or something, you were much more looking for the angst, right? I can understand you liking it more now, but I'm surprised that it was your favorite back then.
And I think it came with a maturity almost. I think I read City of Bones freshman year of high school, or going into freshman year of high school, and I think it really did show a marked difference in maturity and what I was looking for. When I read Twilight the first time, it was this romanticized version of what a relationship could be. I remember just being so enamored with the idea of a guy sneaking into my house, sitting on my chair next to my bed, and then me running over to him and sitting on his lap. That is a scene in Twilight that I reread time and again because I was oh my god, this is romance. And as I got older, I realized okay, there's some issues there, obviously.
Can you imagine if I snuck into your house?
No, I couldn't imagine. I don't want that.
Yeah.
But beyond that, beyond obviously the issues with Twilight, I think for me it was more so having a level playing field in a way. Let's be honest, as much as I love the Edward Bella dynamic, there's not a lot in the way of dialogue and true relationship development there.
Oh, there's none.
There's not. It's just an instant infatuation.
He literally says, I smelled you for the first time and had to hold myself back.
Yes.
Just from the smell.
Yeah. And there's an interesting dynamic there, and I can appreciate it now as an adult for other reasons. But when I was going into high school, I think I liked this relationship so much specifically because it felt more real. I mean, they're on a level playing field. They're, I think, only a year or two apart in age. People that Jace and Clary end up with, I like the relationships that develop and form.
It's interesting that you say that because obviously they're both, well, no, not even that. I don't feel like they're on a level playing field.
That's fair, and we can examine that. Let's go ahead and get into the plot of the book, and we can start talking about that. So the book opens up in infamous club scene, and it's interesting how it is, in my opinion, such a simple scene, such an interesting way to open a book, though, and how it is not done well in either the movie or the show adaptation, in my opinion.
Oh, yeah, no, horribly.
I feel it was a really interesting opener. I feel a lot of YA fantasy, doesn't open in a particularly interesting way, but having basically a murder scene, what amounts to a murder scene, in the opening of not a romance, of a fantasy, was just, I was oh, this is cool. Some shit's gonna go down here. What's going on?
It's also, so many of our thoughts are contradicting, right?
Absolutely, sure.
Not that I hated the beginning of this book or anything, right? But I was actually going to make a comment about how I have felt the beginnings of all of the books that I've read recently for DBBC are all the weakest part in the book. I was this is very cheesy. I could tell that it was going to be a more interesting book than the other DBBC books, and especially the other DBBC YA fantasy novels. Let's exclude the pure romance novels, right?
Yeah.
Just compare it to those. I already knew that it was going to be more interesting, but at the same time, I was just this is just so cheesy.
It certainly was cliche, although, again, I didn't feel I'd really read anything like this up until this point.
Yeah.
Twilight doesn't open particularly interesting.
Oh, no.
I'm trying to think of the other YA fantasies I was reading around the time, but it was girl in a small town, or girl wakes up and she does eventually discover her powers or how she's different. But I liked the way that this one did it. I felt it was a little bit more interesting, and again, I have a fondness for it since I've reread this book a million times. In this opening scene is kind of where we get our first glimpse into the shadow world, and I like that we do get this in the opening scene. How many books actually do that? Not very many actually give you, hey, this is what the fuck's gonna go down in this book, right at the very beginning.
Yeah.
We have Clary, who is going to an all-ages club with her best friend Simon.
That was one of the weirdest parts to me. Let me know in the comments, did anyone ever actually go to an all-ages club? Because I don't know anyone.
Did you ever go to Friday Night Live?
No, not Friday Night Live or Richest Teen Nights.
But is definitely a thing. At least it wasn't in our podunk little part of Texas. So it doesn't
It was
seem...
a thing, but I just didn't know anyone who went. That's what I'm saying.
I had to convince my parents to go. They would never let me because it was like where the kids would congregate. You don't want to be over there because, kids of all ages, you never know what you're going to get. Anyway, all ages club. We have Clary and Simon. We find out quickly that they have a friendship dynamic there. And Clary, I think you can tell at the beginning, like, she's looking for something new and exciting. And, like, she wants something cool to happen. And something cool very much does happen. She encounters this, I guess, scene vignette where a man is, like, tied up and essentially murdered in front of her. And she's the only one that can see it.
In, like, a closet or something?
Yeah, it's, like, in a, like, cordoned off part of this club. She has some interactions with 3 people. Is it 3 people? Is Alec there at this point? Yeah. With Alec, Isabel, and Jace. And in this opening scene, too, I guess, in my opinion, you get to see Jace's personality a little bit and how he's different than all the other guys.
Yeah, I guess. I would definitely say that this is, I mean, again, it's kind of like the lowest point for all of the characters because you don't have anything about them yet. They haven't, like, gotten to build anything.
Sure.
And so this was, like, definitely when Jace was the most douchey for me.
I can agree with that. But I did like it.
I was interested to know, and I'm glad, but I was interested to know that you like Jace a lot more because of the kind of comedy that he brings to things versus like an Edward style, just like nonstop brooding and
Stoic.
like, I'm gonna die if I'm not next to you.
There are definitely facets to what I'm into, and now that I'm literally thinking about it, the 2 romance heroes that I most want to write are kind of an Edward and a Jace, so I feel like best of both worlds coming in. Anyway, so we get this opening scene, and it ends with Clary really questioning things and not really knowing what the fuck's going on. It is different, though, than the show in the movie, and I'm kind of blanking on how that is, but Hayden will feel free to tell us because he knows details.
Wait, she goes and finds Simon, and before she even goes into the room where she meets all of them, right? She tells Simon, oh, I see these guys following this other guy and they have knives and you should go get someone about it, one of the bouncers or whatever. And then she goes in, watches the murder happen, and then basically they all like disappear. I mean, they were never visible to begin with. So when she's like, these guys, and everyone's like, what are you talking about? I'm not talking about anything, Simon, let's leave. And then she leaves, but like she's like panicked, you know.
But she leaves with Simon, and I think that's a pretty important distinction from both the book and the movie. I'm not saying he's any less pathetic in the book. Did I say book and movie? TV show and the movie. He is less pathetic in some ways, I would say, a little bit in the book, and I think it does establish better the relationship dynamic between Clary and Simon. In the books, it is a point of, I don't want to say contention, but like their relationship is a really real possibility throughout the series. Like it's not something that just like comes up in this book and just disappears afterwards.
They do seem a lot closer as real best friends as opposed to
this is
him
just
being like a hanger, or like him being like attached to her, you know, and
like not having his own unique personality. And he does in the other books eventually get his own storylines, like very interesting. You know, I'm the not the supporting man, I'm the lead role for these scenes, so I can appreciate his character, especially in this first book. And we'll be making comparisons to both the show and the movie since we watched the first episode of the show, the entire movie. Neither adaptation did it right. Let's just say that to begin with. But we will probably be making reference to both. So if you haven't watched them, feel free to watch them and come back and see this. They exit the club, the scene changes, and now we have Clary's mom talking to her about things.
Yeah, she basically like, because she comes home super late from the club
From
or whatever.
Pandemonium,
Yeah, her mom's all like, why were you out so late last night? And then she's like, we need to talk. Claire's like, I gotta go, I got some shit I gotta do, you know? And her mom's like, no, we seriously, like, we need to talk.
Is this around the time when she is telling Clary that, like, they're not going to be there?
I think that it's kind of like the same conversation after Clary's like, oh, I can't really, you know, talk right now, I gotta go. And then, you know, her mom's like, we need to go to the country for the rest of the summer, essentially. Yeah. And Claire's like, oh, well, I'm in this art school.
I want to leave my friends. I don't want to be gone for an entire summer. That doesn't sound very fun. I prefer the way that this was done in the book as opposed to the movie and the television show. It just seemed sort of weird for her mom to like really want to divulge the information about being a shadow hunter. I didn't get the vibe that she wanted to really tell Clary that information.
No, and that's why I was so confused about the TV and movie adaptations. It didn't really feel to me like the mom in the book was like super ready to divulge divulge this
she wasn't
information. She
ready
was
to,
like, I'm just
yeah.
going to take you out of the city so that there's not a possibility of you, like, you know, being triggered by something because, like, you're getting to the age or whatever. But they were specifically, like, in the movie, they would be like, you know, it's getting close to, like, the day that we need to tell her because she's about to be 18 or whatever, 16, whatever age it is. She's about to be the age where it's just going to magically, like, happen.
And I feel
you know?
like it makes it a lot less, makes the relationship between Clary and her mom a little bit weird, in my opinion. It's very clear to me that Clary's mom never intended to tell her this information. She wanted Clary to have a very normal life, and I think it makes it more understandable the actions that she takes and what happens, I guess, next as a result.
I also liked the way that it made the reveal play out because, you know, in both the movie and the show, they're trying to, like, give you little crumbs that, you know, her mom isn't so normal, like normal mom, and that she, like, is planning on telling Clary. And like I said, it's weird that they make it seem like when she turns 18 or 16 or whatever age that it is, she will just, like, magically gain her powers, so that's when we gotta tell her. It made me like the reveal a lot more in the book because you didn't realize that her mom was really a part of things until
it was
it's fully revealed, yeah.
That, and I think it changes Clary's personality, how she reacts to things. If you're going to start giving her a stele and trying to explain things to her, and she's just like, I don't want to hear it, Mom, and then just runs away. In the book, I'm not saying she doesn't do that at all, but it is, whenever she does get a lot of this information, she's, like, desperate to know more because her mom is gone, her mom is missing. So
Yeah.
I find her book character to be a lot more, like, interesting and understandable, so.
Yeah, also, if your mom gives you, like, a random, like, antique knife as a gift, was that just in the show version or was that in the movie version?
Oh, it was both, I'm pretty sure, yeah.
Yeah, that was just so weird that they had her do that in those adaptations.
Here's an antique, just put it in your pocket,
Here's a family heirloom that's, like, in a box.
Just hold on to that. And then we have shit kind of going down.
So Clary goes to the cafe to read, or to see Eric. Is that his name? The friend? I'm pretty sure that it's Eric.
We're gonna go with Eric. Who knows what the fuck this man's name is?
I'm like 90% sure
he
it's
ends
Eric.
up throwing down some incredible slam poetry.
Protuberances.
Aaron Zeal. This is where Jace pops back up because he kind of disappears and then he pops back up and he is wondering, I guess, how Clary has the sight, how Clary is able to see him when no one else seems to be able to see him. And it is at this moment, too, that Clary ends up getting a phone call, I believe, from her mom on her, is it BlackBerry?
Think so. Like, that sounds right. Because they mention it a couple of times, you know?
Also the Skechers. Lest I forget the Skechers that Hayden apparently has no recollection of hearing about.
I didn't remember that being a thing, but Chandler's saying that they mentioned it multiple times.
Clary's green Skechers, because come hell or high water, come demon slime or vampire ash, Clary is wearing her green Skechers and they will hold up. They will not be burned in the fiery flames that Jace throws her demon slaying clothes into. So
yeah.
Skechers prevail. We were thinking about, like, how much Cassandra Clare was paid for the Skechers ad, but anyway. So she's answering this call. Jace is like, what's going on? Clary's freaking the fuck out. She eventually just leaves Jace behind. She's like, I need to go see what the hell's up with my mom. And she arrives at her apartment to see. At first, she doesn't really know what's going on. Her house is in disarray, but she doesn't immediately notice it. And then she starts noticing small details like, oh, the couch cushions are astray. I can't find my mom. What the fuck's happening?
Well, and I mentioned this to you before, but there's only really, like, 2 or 3 moments in this book where I think that Clary actually earns the dumb bitch tag, right?
Absolutely.
And this is the first one for me because her mom calls her, like, frantically, and she's like, what, Mom? Sorry, I'm coming home right after this. Like, I'm pretty sure, did she, like, sneak out or something? Is she, like, grounded or something? I don't know. Anyway, maybe that was one of the TV adaptation.
Yeah, it's hard to know what the details are, but
regardless, she's like, oh, my mom's calling me. She thinks that she's in trouble, so she's like, I'm gonna be home soon, don't worry. And her mom's like, no, don't come home. Whatever you do, don't come back here. And then she's like, call Luke, tell Luke that he's found me. He hears some, like, struggling on the other end of the phone, and then her mom hangs up. And her first thought is, I'm gonna go straight home.
And while I do think it could be construed as a dumb decision, I would totally understand. If you hear your mom in a panic, she's scrambling, I would not hesitate to run home, despite my mom telling me, hey, don't help me.
She doesn't say don't help me. She says, don't come home and call the man who is, like, almost your father in terms of how, like, close, how much he's been around in your life. Call him to get help and tell him that so-and-so has found me. She does not do that. She goes to her house.
But again, she's in a panic, and think about other situations that are similar to this. Like if there is some sort of danger and someone tells you, no, stand back, but you want to go help someone that you love. I don't think it's really that outside of the realm of possibility. Most intelligent thing, perhaps not, but I don't think this was a true dumb bitch moment. And that's where I stand on that. She goes home. Again, she sees that the house is in disarray. And is this the moment too where she ends up fighting demons?
Yeah, and that's why this is a dumb bitch decision, because she ignored her mom's request. It does nothing to help her mom and only puts her in danger.
But she didn't know that going into that situation.
Yeah, but she knew that going into that situation. Like, that's what I'm saying. She ignored the warnings. She was like, I don't care what happens to me. And then she's got to fight a demon, so...
I think she has a big heart.
She deserves it.
Deserving of demons.
That's my stance on this book, is Clary deserves demons.
I don't know that I love that take. So we do have our man Jace coming to Clary's rescue, because what would a YA fantasy be without a man coming to the help of a woman? And Jace slays the demons, metaphorically and quite physically. Also, I think in this altercation, Clary gets some sort of like demon poison going on. A bite from a demon, a kiss from a demon.
Or a slash or something like that. Regardless, she's got a Ravager demon. I'm trying to remember what they call it. I'm pretty sure that that's what it is.
That's what a girl wants.
Is a Ravager demon? She got what she asked for.
If you know, you know. As Clary is passing out, Jace ends up taking her to the Institute for the first time. And we get Institute. And we get more context on the other characters once Clary wakes up. We get little, I guess, snippets into their personalities and in their motivations. We get to learn about Isabel, a little bit about Alec, and we get to meet Hodge, I believe, for the first time.
With his bird that they, like, basically left out of the movie and the TV show.
God forbid we forget the bird, you know?
He's important.
Oh, there was a bird in the movie. He's in the
greenhouse.
greenhouse.
Yeah, but he's not in there until the very end when they, like, need the bird for the plot point, you know?
Oh,
like,
no, I'm saying he's in the greenhouse watching the kids make out.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. That's the first time. And she's like, what the hell is that? And he's like, oh, that's Hodge's bird that you've never seen before. But it belongs to Hodge, definitely. Sorry, the bird was important, you know?
Hayden is a bird apologist.
Yeah, I am.
He actually did save some birds this week.
Well, I didn't, but that's a different story.
You did your best, and that's what matters.
Yeah, I did. So we get to the Institute, and she meets all of these characters, and she does learn a little bit of backstory about the Shadowhunters and what they do and, like, who they're supposed to be, that they're, like, supposedly a mix between humans and angels. Is that correct?
Nephilim.
Yeah, Nephilim. And they fight demons, and using very specifically not magic, because magic is for warlocks. I don't remember what...
Angelically imbued objects.
Yeah, imbued objects. Magical objects are different from using magic, right?
Got your steles, got your seraph blades.
Yeah.
Got your angel wares, if you will.
Finds out about the Shadowhunters, like, home country.
Idris.
Idris.
This is where we also learn about the Downworlders.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
So she, she's like kind of like, oh, demons, what are, like, vampires and stuff real too?
Vampires
Pretty much
are
everything's real. What is it? All the stories are real?
All the stories are true.
Yeah.
The way that this world works is that there are demons from the underworld, from different dimensions, and the Shadowhunters are put on this earth to fight the demons. They are given their powers from the angels, and the angels are like, y'all are going to be a special kind of human that are going to fight the demons. And there are also a third, like, subcategory of beings, which are called Downworlders. They typically have some sort of demonic, say, component to them. Not all of them. Some of them are just, like, have sort of, like, demonic diseases that make them the way that they are, like vampires and werewolves. And then we also have the Fae, which are, fallen angels, I guess. I don't know. There are a few different creatures here. I think it's Fae, vampires, werewolves, and then warlocks and witches. Those are the different. And historically, the Downworlders have not been treated very kindly by the Shadowhunters, but there were some accords that were signed, which we'll talk about a little bit later, that make their sort of like a tenuous agreement, I guess you could say, between the Shadowhunters and the Downworlders. Sometimes they work together, but the relationship between them is very much like case-by-case basis. That comes into play a little bit later.
Yeah, so we got all of that, and this is also where we're first introduced to the concept of the Mortal Cup, which is
what helps to create what created the original Shadowhunters. And it is said that if the Mortal Cup, which is at this point lost, is now I guess found, then you would be able to create new shadow hunters, which would ostensibly be able to fight more demons.
Yeah, because right now their numbers are like dwindling.
And yes, they can make more by reproducing, but people are dying quicker than they're able to reproduce.
Yeah.
And the issue with this is that the chances of people dying or going a little bit cuckoo from drinking from this cup are pretty high. So
Yeah.
it's definitely not something that most shadow hunters are down with. But obviously, you gotta have some bad guys that are down with it, which, you know.
Speaking of chances of dying, we also like just slightly forgot to mention the fact that like Jace draws some runes on Clary to kind of like suspend her life temporarily or like save her from the poison that she gets hit by with the demon. She would have definitely died if she didn't have Nephilim blood in her.
Absolutely. Runes are a part of the not magic system of the Nephilim. Basically, they are these marks that you can draw on yourself that imbue you with certain angelic powers. There is the angelic power rune. There's like the healing one. There are different runes, I guess you could say. You draw them with a stele. And that's what Jace does to Clary. He doesn't know how else to save her really from the demon juice.
Before he can like get her to the academy to like fix her up or whatever.
It's the Institute, damn it.
Institute. How many times have I said academy? A lot.
Not in this here episode, but you have said it to me before, so I just thought I'd point it out.
Oh, okay, whatever.
We find out that she is probably part Nephilim, or she
Yeah.
is Nephilim because she did not die from the runes. It is, there's a pretty large chance, again, kind of like with the Mortal Cup, that if you get a rune and you are not Nephilim, that you will die, or again, go a little bit.
Like your body just like won't be able to handle it. But
Insane
Jace just kind
membrane.
of assumed that since she could see all of them, that was probably the case.
Cassandra Clare, you might be a smart lady. It does help to reveal to us part of Jace's personality, which is very fucking rash and maybe not the steady warrior that he should be. I like this introduction into Jace.
Well, so now Clary is trying to track down some kind of clues as to where her mother might have gone.
Yeah.
They go and visit Madame Dorothea's place, which like is underneath where she lives, right? Like where her...
I think she lives in Brooklyn in a walk-up, and so Dorothea lives bottom of the walk-up.
Yeah, and Dorothea is like a psychic. Jace is immediately like, she's a fraud. Slowly we find out that Madame Dorothea is actually a psychic with like some sorts of abilities. And she was kind of giving asylum to Clary's mom. She knows Clary's mom was a shadow hunter. They were living there for the specific reason of there being like a portal in Madame Dorothea's house.
So if ever Clary's mom needed to escape, she could quite easily. She could just fling herself through this door and end up wherever she needed to be. And I feel like at this point we don't actually know why that is. I don't think Dorothea tells Clary or even maybe knows what Clary's mom's running from.
No, I don't think she does either. Or like maybe she does know but doesn't reveal at this point. Because
Yeah.
she does kind of seem to be like hiding some
A lot
things.
of things,
Yeah.
yeah.
And, you know, Clary hears about this portal and thinks that it's possible that her mom like escaped through the portal, or like it's either that or she just wants to know where her mom might have went to. And now is when we come to what I would consider to be the second dumb bitch moment, where she's just like, I want to see my mom, and then she just runs through the portal, even though...
The portal has a specific way it needs to be used. You can't just fling yourself in it.
And she doesn't even know that, though. She doesn't know anything. She doesn't know where the portal goes. She's just like, oh, maybe my mom went there, or like, this is where my mom would have gone.
I do concede that this is a dumb bitch moment. I
Yeah.
don't know that that's... To me, that's scary as hell. The idea that there are portals to different dimensions, I would be like, ooh, let's be cautious here.
Yeah.
Clary instead is like, that's where my mama is.
She
Let me
doesn't
go.
even say anything. She just runs at it. Jace follows her, tumble through the air, and then they land, like, outside of Luke's house.
Yes.
So they go inside Luke's place to, I guess, like, snoop around. Because previously, Clary had called Luke just like her mom had asked. And Luke was basically like, I don't want anything to do with you. You're not my problem. Stay away from me.
You're not my dad.
So they're like, what the hell is up with him? So they go to his place. He's not there.
But there's handcuffs.
Yeah, there's like a shackled prison kind of thing, like, in his house.
They're wondering who this man's torturing and what sort of sex kinks he has.
And I believe that there's like a bunch of guns and swords as well. Like, kind of like a go bag of weapons.
I mean, sure.
They're hanging out there, and Luke comes back. Luke also is walking with some funky guys, and...
funky guys.
Yeah, it's just something's off about them. Turns out they're warlocks, and you overhear Luke saying some things like they're asking Luke about Clary's mom, like where did she go? We kind of overhear them discussing the fact that she might have the Mortal Cup. Like that's why they're looking for her.
So is it warlocks or is it circle members?
They are warlocks.
Valentine doesn't want anything to do with downworlders. How does that make any sense?
I don't know. What's the difference?
A warlock is a half demon. And so Valentine doesn't fuck with those people. Circle members are disgraced shadow hunters.
What do you mean he doesn't fuck with those people? He's been like summoning demons and shit.
Yeah,
sending demons to do the work.
His whole thing is that he hates downworlders. That is his entire crux. He would not have them.
All right, so maybe they're not warlocks. Whatever.
Circle members.
Circle members. They're trying to find Clary's mom, and he's like, I don't know where she is. I don't care about her. If she has the cup, then whatever. That's not my problem. And
Eloquently
Claire's like, oh, okay.
Who do I turn to now for help? So after this run-in with Luke and the circle members, Clary is kind of reeling because she's like, who do I turn to? I don't know if I can trust Luke anymore. And now she has questions about the circle as a whole because she's hearing some things, I want to say, between Luke and these circle members. So she goes back to the Institute and she starts asking Hodge questions about her mom and about how her mom could maybe be involved with the Mortal Cup, because it's pretty clear to her that her mom is probably a shadow hunter at this point, and this is where she really learns if the circle is, who Valentine, our villain, is.
Because we've heard the name Valentine a couple of times up until
this point, but we don't know who he is, and essentially what Hodge, who is this old man who's the leader of the Institute, I don't think we ever really made that clear, the wise Gandalf, if you will, he lets us know that Clary's mom was involved with a man named Valentine. Valentine is the big bad, I guess you could say, of this world, and he wanted to create more shadow hunters to fight more demons, and
he was a shadow hunter previously,
and he did not want anything to do with downworlders, because around the time of the circle's formation, which is Valentine's little inner circle, there were these things called the Accords being drawn up, which were going to be, again, these agreements between shadow hunters and downworlders to work together and live in peace. Valentine, being the bigot that he is, not really a big fan of this idea. He's like, I don't really fuck with these magic wielding peoples. He decides that he'd rather kill downworlders and that he wants to create his own army of shadow hunters by using the Mortal Cup the way that it was initially used,
Yeah.
Most shadow hunters are not cool with this. It is against the law to create more shadow hunters. They can only be born and bred.
It's because
not
it's
created.
It's because it's so dangerous. Like we were saying earlier, it's a high chance of people dying by, drinking the stuff from the Mortal Cup to turn them into a shadow hunter.
That, and I do think that there in this world is a sort of attachment to lineage. There are some renowned families. So how are you going to create new people? I understand why, shadow hunters didn't really want new people to be created. And we find out that Clary's mom was actually married to Valentine, which, Clary's kind of scared of this concept of, being the daughter potentially of pure evil. She's not sure that Valentine's her dad. She has kind of an inkling now that she knows her mom is involved. And Clary is out to still seek more answers. She's gotten some things answered, but her biggest question now is, why did my mom keep this information from me, and how do I find out more about my past, my background, and how do I get to my mom still, because I really want to help my mom.
Now it's time for Clary to visit the Spooky Bone Boys.
Clary finds out from Hodge that she probably has some sort of maybe not block in her mind. I think it's actually the Silent Brothers that reveal that to her.
Yeah.
But Hodge does say, I know some Spooky Bone Boys. They speak in your mind and they let you know your secrets.
They can help, open up maybe memories that
your
you've
third
repressed.
Eye. Yes,
I think at that point they're just like, oh, you have memory. You must have memories that you've repressed. It's like you're doing, right?
Because you are a shadow hunter and you would know that from a young age. So they scramble her brains. Do a little bit of scrambled egg stuff, and then they come to the conclusion that they are not the ones that can get past this block of her memories because someone put it there, and they realize it's not Clary that's repressing these memories. Someone did this to her, and so now she has to go and seek out who done it.
Someone by the name of Magnus Bane. They find a signature in her brain on the block, and then for some I thought that this was an odd choice in writing, that they're like, yeah, it was one name is the only thing that we got was Magnus Bane. And Isabel's like, oh, isn't that crazy? I just got an invitation to a party from Magnus Bane.
There are some conveniences here, certainly, that I noticed around this point in the book, that Clary conveniently falls through the portal to Luke's house, you know? But yes, I agree. It was convenient that Isabel was just like, hey, got an invitation to the hot new spot,
Yeah.
Magnus Bane's place. And this is where stuff I think gets fun and exciting.
Yeah.
Because...
Magnus is a fun character. I liked him. I think Magnus might be my favorite character in this book.
And I think that is a universally agreed upon thing. Everybody really enjoys Magnus and
He's
his
just
personality.
chill. He seems fun.
He seems like your kind of guy.
Yeah.
So everybody gets all cute and sassy for this Magnus Bane party because he is the hot, young, not really young, hundreds of years old warlock.
I believe he is like the head warlock of
High
Brooklyn.
Warlock.
High Warlock of Brooklyn, which just a lit title.
Is that how you'd like to be referred to from now on?
No, because
The High Warlock of Austin?
it would be false
You don't have what it takes.
to be the High Warlock. Yeah, no, specifically the Warlock part of it. I could just be the High of Austin. So now we go to the party, and Clary
Is dressed like a hussy.
and she kind of corners Magnus at some point. She's like, just keeps trying to talk to him. And then he's like, yes, of course, I know who you are because I keep putting this block in your mind. Your mom takes you here every couple years when it wears off. And like,
I do be scrambling.
I do my thing, you know. And yes, at one point, I did sign your brand like a yearbook. And
Hags, girl, hags.
damn, I can't believe you would do that to me. And he's like, yeah, sorry about that. And she's like, so can you undo it? And he's like, nah, not really. It's kind of like eggs, right? Like I can scramble them, but you can't really unscramble
The
them.
eggs.
Yeah,
Gives
exactly.
her the full scrambling. And this is where, arguably, the best part of this whole fucking book comes in. Simon, our dear friend, for some reason, he's been in this book, but we haven't really thought about him much up until this point.
He has this weird kind of like quasi-fling thing going with Isabel, and no one can really tell if Isabel's just like kind of...
Putting up with him or she's actually entertained by his, like, quirky flirtations.
Well, not even putting up with him. I think that they're like afraid that she's just kind of like toying with him, you know?
That's true, that's true.
And he's like trying to impress her, and he's also mad that Clary like went in this other room with Jace and Magnus, and so
What kinky sex shit's happening there?
he just drinks a random like glass off of a tray that someone's passing around. It turns into a rat.
It just feels right that the embodiment of who he is what he turns into.
You think he's a rat?
I do actually.
Does he snitch later in the books?
I know. He has a journey that we're
Okay.
gonna go on, and I'm not gonna spoil that for you.
A rat tail, if you will.
Sure, let's go with that. Simon turns into a rat, and I feel like it's fitting because I didn't realize, and I felt this way more when I read it in 2019 than I do now. He was much more annoying than I had thought when I first read this book. I saw him as very much a viable love interest, and I do think he redeems himself in other books, especially when he's dealing with his own personal battles. But in this book, he's just the annoying fucking human who doesn't have any powers, who is not an angel, and I'm just like, who are you?
If I'm being honest, though, I felt like he had some annoying parts in the book, but for me personally, nothing that he's done up to this point in the book when I read was like very annoying. I thought that he was just like
Just a guy.
he was just the normal person, and honestly, the one in the situation who, as like a normal human, getting all of this information thrust on you when you're like a teenager, kind of the only one acting normally.
Yeah.
Aside from the like jealousy grabbing the drink and turning into a rat thing.
That wasn't his brightest moment. I don't know if I would take a random drink at a party, but I also am a woman, so, you know.
Yeah, that's true. It's different times, maybe? No, it's not even
No,
different times. No. Yeah.
No.
Just wouldn't do it.
Just a man. So Simon is now a rat. We don't know where the fuck he's gone, but we know he is a rat. He ends up disappearing, and that is the next part of this book, is us finding out how to get Simon back and how to make sure he's not a rat.
They go back and like ask Magnus, because there was this whole deal with the vampires, right? Like the vampires brought these motorcycles to the party. Someone like up the motorcycles by like pouring holy water in the gas tanks or something like that, and like melting all of their motorcycles, and they're super pissed. They think that the vampires might have taken Simon on purpose, because they think that like Jace and the other shadow hunters who like aren't really supposed to be at this downworlder party might have like messed up all of their stuff.
Sabotage. if
Yeah.
you will.
So they're like, Magnus, where are these vampires at? And he's like, I don't really owe you anything, and I can't really like tell you that kind of information. And she's like, boy, you've been scrambling my brains for my whole life, so
The least you can do
Yeah.
is tell me where my rat pal is.
yeah. He gives them the location of the vampires, which is the Hotel du Mort, the Death Hotel. They go there, and there's a man
Vampires.
outside.
Well, yes, there is.
And he's like, don't go in there. My brother went in there a long time ago and he never came out. There's evil things in there. They're like, yeah, we fucking know, man. Like, that's why we came. We got a rat friend inside. We gotta go find. And
Y'all
he's
got
like,
any
okay.
cheese?
He's like, if y'all are brave enough to go in, then I'll go in with you. And they do find some vampires. And then turns out the little guy they met out front is the leader of this crew of vampires, or at least the interim leader, while like the head vampire is like out of town on vacation or something like that. I don't really know where vampires go on business. So we find out that Simon is there, and they claim that they didn't take Simon out of spite. They thought that it was one of their other friends who also drank one of these potions and turned into a rat, and they were like, oh, I guess that this isn't our boy, this is your boy. And they somehow get Simon, just like chomps down on the main guy's like hand or something.
And they escape on the flying motorcycle.
Yeah, and then they get to fly in the city.
One of my moments that like stuck out to me in this particular instance too was the fact that Clary asks, oh, I thought that not all of these motorcycles were imbued with magic. How did you know which one was which? And he's like, I didn't. Just reckless abandon.
To be fair, they were motorcycles parked on the roof. So tell me how you get a motorcycle on the roof if it's not imbued with flying magic.
Elevator.
No one, also, even if there was an elevator, no one's taking a non-flying motorcycle on the elevator up to the roof. Like, for what reason? To fool someone who might break in and try to steal the motorcycles on the roof?
Anyway, they end up escaping on these flying motorcycles, and this leads us to what is perhaps my favorite part of the book, which is the domestic moments and domestic drama, because that's what a girl's into. So
This was the worst part overall.
I'll narrate this because this is what a girl's into. Okay, we're back at the Institute, and Clary actually ends up having a
It's weird what you're into.
scuffle with Alec.
He kind of chokes her a little bit, I think.
He does, and we're kind of like, what's up? But he's actually gay, so, you
Yeah.
know, it's not going to be sexual, sadly. And we do find out that there is some unresolved tension because Alec has a thing for Jace. Clary kind of has guessed this, but it is not cool to say that out loud, apparently. So he chokes her, and that's a thing that happens. Not much actually comes out of that, but...
Yeah, he's mostly, we find out that all of the, like, hatred that Alec has had towards her this whole time is because he is in love with Jace. She forces Jace to do stupid things in order to, like, save her and other people, and it puts Jace's life on the line, and because he's so reckless, he's going to do that time and time again, and he's trying to reduce the amount of times that Jace does that because he doesn't want to see him die.
Exactly.
So,
you know, when I read this scene in this particular part of the book, I will say that I kind of felt like it was unnecessary in some ways. I just feel like Alec's character, he doesn't really get much beyond this one scene, and he does become more of a player in the next books, but it did feel kind of randomly placed and a little bit like, why is this necessary when there's really no, like, redemption, resolution, or really any other scene with him? It just felt kind of randomly placed, especially when I'm, like, looking at my notes and thinking of the things that come next. I'm like, oh, all of this, like, leads the story forward. But at this point, I'm just like, why do we even have this scene? It just didn't feel like it had an impact.
it's weird to me as well because, like you were saying, that it's like one of the only scenes that we get with him, and it's kind of just like, oh, well, Alec sucks. It's just kind of the only vibe that we get from him.
Let's move on, though, because there are some things that are maybe not less weird, but are moving the book forward. So we have Clary next, who ends up, after, you know, these, like, harrowing moments that she's been through, having some more, like, domestic times with Jace. She ends up making out with him, and conveniently does this right outside the door of Simon, who, in a fit of rage, almost kind of, like, confesses his love to Clary.
Yeah, this whole thing was just not it for me, dog. This is another circumstance for me where I felt like there wasn't enough, like, lead up.
Hayden's a slow burn guy.
It's not a slow burn guy. There was no burn. There was just, like, it was like a firework. Like, you lit the fuse and 2 seconds later. No, it's as if there was no fuse and you just lit the firework directly. You put a lighter to it and it just blew up.
What part of it? The confession on Simon's part? Or
No. That one we can tell has been going on, brewing for, you know, many, 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 many years. Jace, on the other hand, is just like, I guess you've been in some demon fights together.
See, I've enjoyed their banter moments. You know, they go out to eat together.
There is
there's
definitely
moments.
more than in it happened last summer. So I'll give him that.
One summer.
I know what you did one summer.
You wore those little white panties.
But yeah, I just didn't feel like there was a whole lot there before besides like maybe I've never kissed a guy and you're around, you know?
Scraping the bottom
Because
of the barrel.
consistently she's like, I don't like you as a person.
It's called Enemies to
It's just
Lovers.
like-
Look it up.
But no, it's not even like enemies enough to be enemies to lovers.
Yeah.
It's more like I'm not really interested in you because you seem quite a bit full of yourself. You're kind of a dick also.
But you're also hot, have abs, and great lion hair, which she points out multiple times. His golden halo.
It's so weird. And then also the weird like incel vibes from Simon. Why don't you love me? I love you.
I don't think that it was that much of an overreaction on the part of Simon because they've been friends for a really long time, and sure, it is unfair of him to expect that Clary would return his feelings, but this is something that does end up resolving itself the next books, and he kind of does realize the error of his ways. I will say, reading this time around, I did kind of have similar-ish feelings to Hayden. It did feel like this kiss was kind of out of nowhere, but I think that knowing what I know, it makes sense why things go down the way that they do. And I don't want to elaborate because Hayden has not been spoiled for the books in the series, and I just don't want to spoil things.
Also, I can kind of see, at least to the end of this book, it makes sense that they made it happen this way, and then also that they made Jace react this way after Simon walks out and sees them. Jace is kind of like a dick about it, you know? Simon's like, what the hell's going on? And she's like, oh, I thought you were in bed. And he's like, I mean, I was. And then Jace is like, how are you not gonna, tell me there's already another gentleman in your bed? This is so rude. And she's like, what are you talking about? And he's like, maybe you should think about my feelings first or something like that. But it's just kind of like it's like a snide remark. They made him be a real dick afterwards. They have this kind of like little passionate moment, and then one little thing happens and he's like, oh yeah, well, forget you, it wasn't even important to me anyways. So
That's because he's emotionally repressed.
yeah,
He's a complex individual.
yeah, we love repression around here. You like repression in a man?
I like a man who has complex feelings, and you can't say that Jace doesn't have complex feelings. So this all goes down. It feels a little bit oddly placed, I guess, because this is kind of when the plot's heating up, but I do think it kind of breaks the tension in a way that I liked, and I think the reason this series, again, stands out to me is because of some of these domestic moments. I felt very immersed in the world. I think if it had been all action all the time, like in the movie or something like that, I don't think I would have had the same level of attachment to this series, because who wants to be reading like high stakes shit all the time, especially upon a reread? Like, I definitely want to like be in it with the characters and like watch these little slice of life moments. So liked it.
This was a slice of life moment for you.
A little drama, a little intrigue,
Okay.
a little love triangle. It's what a girl wants. It's what a girl needs.
I'm not really sure that this triangle has any sides to it though.
It's a circle of love. It is around this time though that Clary's art comes into play. So part of discovery, I guess you could say, that Clary is into Jace on the part of Simon, that this is not just like a one-off kiss kind of thing, is that he finds her sketchbook and sees a sketch of Jace in it, correct? Mm-hmm. We also get we're getting introduced to Clary's drawing. I mean, we kind of know at the beginning of the book that like she's an artist and her mom's an artist or whatever the fuck, but we really don't get insight into Clary's drawings until this point. And honestly, that might be why the scene happens. But we find out that Clary has the ability to draw things and has the ability to like draw things into paper. Things just fall into paper. Like, I pick up this iPhone, I set it down on a piece of paper, and it becomes a drawing on that piece of paper.
And then she can reach into the drawing and pull the thing back out.
And this is how she remembers this run-in that she had with Madame Dorothea, who has a tarot deck that was painted by Clary's mother, and realizes, oh shit, the cups on this drawing
Does a tarot reading at Madame Dorothea's place, and the card that she like picks in the tarot reading is the Mortal Cup card.
And she's like, you know what? I know where the cup is. It's in the card.
Yeah. They're like, oh, that's crazy. We didn't even know that these powers existed. Like, I've never seen these runes before that you're using.
We do have this scene after this where Clary ends up going to Madame Dorothea's house, having to fight Madame Dorothea, who is now taken over by a demon. And honestly, this part of the book fucking bores me, and I don't care about it. So if you want to go off, feel free.
There wasn't really anything in this book that particularly interested me, so if you want to go off, feel free.
Moving right along, the only thing of import that happens is that Simon is actually the one that saves everybody in this scene, and Alec is injured.
What does he even do? What do you mean? I don't even remember this.
He is the only one that is not inside of the room that shit's happening, going down. I don't know exactly what he does, but he helps everybody. He saves everybody, but Alec gets injured, and this is kind of the last that we see of Alec. So that's fun and exciting and juicy.
Yeah, and it's kind of like the only significance to that is previously they mentioned that Alec has never actually killed a demon before. He's kind of like supposed to be like kind of like a wimp or something like that, or not even a wimp, but just kind of like a scaredy cat. It's on a brave face all the time to be cool for Jace. He tries to be a hero with some kind of crazy like big interdimensional demon or something like that that's like supposed to be significantly strong.
He's gonna take this opportunity to kill a demon.
Yeah, but he gets fucked up.
And Simon's actually the one that saves the day. Then things get a little hairy. And by that I mean the end of this book is a fucking blur to me. I do remember like some of the key points, some of the problematic elements, shall we say, but I can't remember every little detail of what happens. And I don't know how much detail you would like to go into. You got this?
I got this. So they rush back to the academy. I know that it's the Institute. I just wanted to say it. I guess like get Alec some help, and also because they found the cup. They show Hodge that they found the cup and that she can like, pull it out of the card, and she's like, ooh, Houdini. Hodge is like, yo, this is crazy. And then he basically does some shit, and turns out there's a portal at the Institute, and Valentine comes through. So the only people that are there are Clary and Hodge at the moment, right? Like when Valentine comes through.
Yeah.
And then we find out that Hodge is actually working with Valentine to get him the cup, because Hodge used to be part of the Circle back in the day when Valentine was there. He was one of Valentine's, like, boys or whatever.
Head honchos.
Yeah.
Henchmen.
And for some reason, he is one of the only ones that gets punished by the Clave after everything, goes bad and Valentine, like, disappeared or whatever. He's the only one that gets punished, and he's punished by being cursed to remain inside the building where the Institute is, like, forever. Like, he can't go outside. The whole deal is, like, if he gives him the cup, Valentine will lift the curse and he'll be able to leave. But in order to do that, he basically has to betray everyone, like, all of the children that he's been
supposedly taken care of their entire lives.
And not only does he give Valentine the cup, but Valentine's like, yeah, I'm gonna have to take the boy. And he's like, yeah, whatever, man. He's all yours. So basically, that is indeed what happens. Jace comes in, and, like, Hodge just kind of, like, does something that, like, knocks him out. And he gets taken. And this is also where we find out that, for sure, Clary's dad is Valentine. And Jace is taken. And Hodge gets fuck out of there, too.
Dupes.
He's like, deuces, I ain't been outside in a minute, man. I'm about to pick me up some Wendy's.
After this happens, after this goes down, Clary comes across Luke, and I think Luke's being, like, kept in the bottom of the Institute or something. I don't know. He's there for some fucking reason. And
I think he comes to save her.
Maybe he does. And she ends up getting the lowdown on actually, like, what Valentine's all about, because up until this point, she doesn't actually know about...
She escapes into the street. That's what it is.
Maybe it's that. But she ends up finding out really what the Clave's all about. She finds out more about her parentage, but also she finds out about the deal with the Downworlders and the fact that Valentine went ape shit when the Accords were being signed. Like, he fully murdered a bunch of Downworlders and pissed some people off. And I definitely did not remember him murdering people, but I do think it sort of, like, seals the deal that this man's not good news.
Yeah, of course. I kind of thought that it was a given at the beginning of the book when he's, like, essentially hiring henchmen, and everyone's like, Valentine sends his regards, and everyone that they say that to is like, what are you talking about? Valentine's dead. Like, how dare you invoke the name of Valentine? We don't speak that here. It's like, to me, it was like Voldemort. It's like, it was a given that he's like a bad dude. Like, I didn't expect the bad dude to also have, like, morals or something.
No, I didn't expect it either, but I didn't remember that level of brutality. I thought it was just that he had these ideas and that he created the Forsaken. I didn't think that, like, he really killed all of these Downworlders and, like, was really that vehemently against the Accords. I thought he was more about, like, creating his own army.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that was quite the knowledge, quite the thing to learn. So during this time, we learn a little bit about Clary's brother. And this is where things get interesting. So, the reason that Jocelyn ends up leaving is because I don't exactly... What are the mechanics of, like, why this house burned down? Do you remember?
Wait, which house burned down?
The house that Jonathan Christopher and their grandparents were in.
Oh, it's because Clary's mom took the Mortal Cup, was going to run away with the Mortal Cup and their son because Valentine was a bad dude. He was, like, doing some real bad shit, and she was like, not with me and my boy. So she's trying to take the Mortal Cup and the kid and dip out of there, And so he burns the house down.
Fuck them kids.
I believe that it is also a vehicle for purposefully faking his own death.
Ah, okay. That makes sense. That checks out.
So he tries to fake his own death and get away with Jace. Oh, well, yeah, spoiler alert. Jace is John Christopher, her brother.
JC.
So he's trying to make it out with JC because he doesn't want Clary's mom to take him away. So he burns the house down, kills the grandparents. He also, it's just some, random kid
Yeah,
or
he
some
takes,
bones
some
that
bones.
he dug up somewhere else and scrambles them in there, and so they think that John Christopher is dead, and they think that he is dead, and the grandparents are actually dead. But turns out he was raising Jace
On his own.
on his own the whole time,
And it does check out.
killing his hawks and shit.
It does check out from what we've heard from Jace about his father. There is, I would say, relationship development because Jace does tell Clary about his upbringing a little bit, talks about how his father told him that he, to love is weakness, all of these things. And it definitely checks out with the kind of person that we know Valentine to be, that the guy that raised him would be
Yeah,
Valentine.
that's the only conversation that they have before they make out, and it's literally right before they make out. It's the only conversation that they have is he's like, hey, one time my dad gave me this bird and then made me train it, and I made it love me, and so he killed it. She's like, damn, that's rough. Want to make out?
She's trying to show him with her lips that
How hawks do? You're a loving hawk.
maybe she's gonna feed him baby bird style.
Ugh.
Anyway.
The early hawk gets the worm.
She the hawk in that equation, getting his worm?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks for spelling it out for me. Clary's having to deal with this knowledge on her own, but then we do have Jace come back into the picture when Valentine comes back again, and why the fuck does he come back? That's what I didn't really remember and understand.
I recall correctly, he doesn't come back. They go to him.
To get Jace?
Yeah,
That
to
makes
get
sense,
Jace
yeah.
and the cup. Yeah, which was weird in the movie adaptation, because the TV adaptation we only watched one episode because it was
Dog shit.
the worst piece of film that I've ever seen.
It's bad.
The movie, however, obviously gets to the end of the book one story, and in that one, he comes through the portal to pick up Jace. In the part of the story, he comes through the portal in the Institute, and that's where everything happens. It's
Everything's
just right
revealed,
there.
and he ends up leaving
It's where the
again.
big it's where the big showdown is. But in the
No,
books,
I'm saying he ends up leaving again, but he doesn't come back. Or they don't have another run-in with him. It's one run-in and that's it.
Yeah, exactly. And in the book, they find out that his lair is on some island. Oh, well, now we gotta go to where the lair is to get Jace back before Valentine does whatever with him. They think that Valentine's gonna kill him because I don't think that it hasn't been revealed that they're brother and sister yet. Because whenever they get there is when he's like, oh, Clary, you have to listen to me. Valentine's not a bad guy. He's actually my dad. And she's like, what? No, he's not your dad. He's just trying to trick you.
Luke said the Jonathan and Christopher thing, though. Mm-mm. Anyway, they find out that they're...
Or maybe he does, but they just don't put it together until they get there. And he's like, he's my dad. And then she's like, oh, Jonathan Christopher, Jace.
I've been making out with my brother.
I tongued my brother.
It's giving very much Life with Derek. It's a show that came on in Canada. And it's about a blended family.
I would rather watch Wheel of Fortune reruns.
We know Hayden has no taste.
That was the I'm gonna sit on the TV guide channel.
Anyway, they have a Life with Derek sort of moment. Except for it doesn't resolve in the way that one does. Although, do they ever make out in Life with Derek? I don't think they do, and I think that's maybe why people are so hung up on it years later. In this instance, Jace is pretty upset that this is his sis, and she's kind of upset too, because young love wanted to triumph, and unfortunately, it won't.
Yeah, but he's still no, Clary, you gotta listen to him. He's my dad. And she's like, yeah, but my mom is so much cooler. And he's like, yeah, but she abandoned me. She wasn't there. So, don't try to tell me how cool she is, because I know that she's lame as hell. My dad is here right now. My dad could beat up your dad. So...
How does this part of the book end? I know the epilogue. I know what happens after, but, what happens with Valentine?
Her and Valentine kind of, get in, a scuffle. Yeah, I think it makes Jace realize that if this is how he's treating who he claims to be his own daughter, then maybe he's not 100% worth listening to anyways, and also, to be fair, he hasn't really been around. Like, Jace thinks that his father died when he was, like, way, way younger,
Yeah,
right?
like 10 or something.
So he's basically got abandoned by both of them, and this one is back now, but he's kind of a piece of shit. And so he kind of helps defend Clary. Oh, yeah, his dad goes to, like, escape to Idris through a portal that is a mirror. And
the mirror shatters afterwards.
Yeah.
Jace likes to keep a shard so he can be emo and look into it. It kind of reminds me of that SNL skit where it's like wishing wells for sad boys or some shit like that. That's definitely Jace in this moment. He keeps this little piece of glass so he can look into it and look at Idris.
And also, not to be forgotten, the whole time Luke is full on in wolf form with his whole wolf pack messing people up.
As he should.
On Clary's behalf.
Yeah, as he should, as the semi-father.
Yeah. No, at the end here, like, the resolution is that they get her mom back, who was still asleep because apparently she, like, took some kind of sleeping potion or something whenever Valentine caught her. So she's still asleep, and they take her to the hospital.
Clary's in the hospital. Jace is there too, but he doesn't actually, like, go in to visit with Clary's mom. It's Jace's mom technically too. He says to her, like, she's not my mom, she abandoned me, and you can tell that there's some unresolved tension there that might come up next in the book series. And then we do have this scene that really closes out the book in such a weird way, where Jace sort of tells Clary, like, I know I shouldn't think of you this way, but I don't know, it's hard to be around you because I have romantic feelings towards you, even though you're my sister.
Hell yeah.
And that's how the book ends, so what a way to go out.
Jace, good guy. I see why you like him so much. I understand it now. I understand why you reread this book so many times.
So that concludes that book. I guess let's talk about our thoughts and feelings and stuff, since we can sprinkle them in throughout at the book, but or throughout this video. We got more thoughts. I told you about my thoughts on the Skechers. I am surprised that the green Skechers came up so much.
I think maybe just it's been some time since I read it, but like the like big reveal, the like brother sister love situation thing, the brother love, if you will, doesn't have as big of an impact as I would like it to, if I'm being honest. And I don't know if that's like controversial opinion, but it just like, it was supposed to be like the big reveal, and I guess it is, but it just didn't feel that like hard-hitting to me.
Like, you wanted some more build-up for this? Like, you wanted them to be more embroiled in a romantic relationship before this was revealed? Like, what would have really done it for you? Really made it, oh my god, I can't believe it.
Oh, just something different? That's what I mean. But it does leave just a really weird feeling at the end of the book. It doesn't feel like a cliffhanger, and it doesn't feel like it wrapped anything up. Like, her mom's still asleep. They're still brother and sister, maybe? They maybe still like each other? Like, who the fuck knows? The end of this book is just, who the fuck knows, let's fly away on a motorcycle. Yeah, that's kind of how I feel about it. I mean, overall, like, the story was definitely more interesting to me than all of the other DBBC books. It was, by interesting, I mean, palatable. It wasn't a chore necessarily to read this one, whereas some of them have been. Yeah, that's kind of how I felt about it, but because it was kind of better means that I had less things to say. Kind of the same with It Happened One Summer.
It does make it challenging for these videos because you want to make it as funny and as interesting as possible, but it can be challenging when the book isn't like overwhelmingly bad. I will say for me, like, a lot of what I want to say and a lot of my thoughts and feelings are challenging in this moment because first book and the second book are so intertwined in my mind. A lot of what happens...
You don't want to spoil anything?
A lot of what happens at the end of that book, at the end of this first book, gets resolved and or is it's challenging to talk about, and that's not the case for this entire series, but for these first two books it is really hard to like separate my feelings because to me I think of them as one thing. It's tough. And I didn't think we'd run into this issue because we have read series before in the DBBC, like we read ACOTAR and ACOMAF together, but I have such a fondness for this book. It's just bizarre and fun, and I really like Jace. I think that was really what it all comes down to. I like him. I like how angsty he is in the way that I enjoy, and you can tell there's like little bits of self-loathing there a little bit too, especially at the end when he is saying like, I have feelings for you, but like I know that I'm not supposed to. I can really feel his anguish in that moment, and I personally like really connected with that. I would say of all of the tropes that are the most underrated that I love the most, it is men who hate themselves. That is like my kink. I really like guys in books who don't think that they are good enough for the people around them, usually the love interest, but really anyone, and who, hate themselves. And I don't know, maybe that's
Wait, do you think that that's Jace?
Maybe that's the feminist in me. Yeah, I think he covers up a lot of his self-loathing and hatred for himself by acting cocky and overly confident, personally.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, I guess I haven't gotten to that part of the story
I just thought it was
yet.
obvious, personally. It's just a thing that I like, and why are there not more romances like that? There are a few that I can think of that I read around this time, too, that I was like, I like this. Men that don't think they're good enough for women, that should be a more universal thing. That should be something that's, like, more common. If you've read the third book in the Black Dagger Brotherhood series, you know what's up, because sadist in that book.
So I have two kind of connected questions for you.
Sure, certainly.
To, I guess, kind of close this out.
Yeah.
So knowing that I'm going to have to continue reading these books, would you say that this series gets better as it progresses?
Yes, and more unhinged at the same time. So the way that she conceptualized the series, there are 6 books. There are 5 or 6 books. I can't entirely remember. The first is a trilogy. It's like a full trilogy. It has a very good conclusion, and she didn't think she was going to get more books in the series, so it ends very, like, well. You don't need any more books.
And then it just continues with some, like, well, let's come up with some shit now?
Yes, some of which is good, and some of which is fucking unhinged, and I'm very excited to get to those books specifically. Not that I don't love books 2 and 3, they're obviously, like, fantastic and some of my favorites, but I think I'm most interested in reading the rest of those books, because I think I stopped at, like, book 5 or something like that, and I can't really remember all that happens after book 3, because the first 3 are the ones that I reread time and again, and I want to say, I mean, let's see when book 4 came out, but I think it, like, came out the end of high school for me, maybe? I don't know.
2011?
It's like mid-high school, I think. I don't know. I wasn't able to, like, completely finish out the series, so I'll be finishing out the series with you and remembering things and learning things along the way. I'm excited to endeavor on this journey with you, and I'm excited to see what you think about these books as we carry on. In the comments down below, which Hayden will not read because he's not going to get spoiled for the second book, let us know what you think of the Mortal Instruments series. Do you have the fondness for them that I do personally? Are you a big fan of the Infernal Devices? Because I know that that's, like, everybody's favorite series. Like, are you a Jem, Will, Tessa kind of person? And also let me know, like, who your favorite characters are. Also, like, does Simon deserve to be a rat?
What are you looking at me for?
I just thought you would have some funny quip, but...
It's not like a chore or anything, but because it's not super bad and it's also not super good, it's just kind of mediocre, Just, like, I'm already, like, preparing myself for the fact that I have to read 6 of these.
You're gonna have some shit to say. I'll just put it that way.
Oh, I hope.
We will see you next time. Thanks so much for watching. Love y'all so much. And until next time.